Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm sorry I took so long to get back to doing this, but I had a wake-up call. I just went through something extremely traumatic, and I just wanted to give information that could be helpful to other people who are going through the same thing. Bibi is right now recovering from GI stasis. And if you don't know about GI stasis in rabbits, it is extremely lethal to them. I wake up in the mornings and usually there's like a lot of rabbit poop everywhere, like maybe 50 to 6, a lot of droppings. Just put it this way, there's a lot. So that kind of indicates your bunny or your rabbit's health and how much they poop, right? So I kind of learned about this earlier, so I recognize it. So if you're going through this and you come across this video, because I looked up, you're kind of in a state of despair, and I looked up a bunch of videos just for information, and that's why I wanted to put my experience out there. So I woke up and Wol's poop was fine. He made a bunch of poop because that's what they do at night, especially because I feed them pellets, and the pellets that I give them makes them use the bathroom a lot. So that's what I usually wake up to, and then that's a good sign because their system's healthy. Well, a couple of days ago, about maybe 3 days ago, I woke up and Bibi didn't have any poop in his cage or in his litter box. So that was my indication, like, okay, something might be wrong. Then I usually give them their treat in the morning. That's a slice of banana and an organic treat that it's like, it's kind of sweet, but it also has Timothy hay in it. But I give them a treat in the morning. They always run to it. Bibi usually gets super hyper, like even tries to jump out of his cage for it. That's his usual behavior. But on this morning, he didn't want it at all. He didn't even run up to me or even care about the treat at all. So that was my first indication that something was wrong. After this, I looked around his cage and I noticed there were only like a few droppings, like maybe like 5 or 6 at the most. And they were irregular size, like they weren't like big like how they usually are. They were kind of small and irregular in shape. Okay, so this was my alarm, and the fact that he didn't want his favorite food is the best indicator. That lets you know that something's wrong and that they're not feeling well. What I did was I quickly called the 24-hour, I called out of work that day. I had to, because this thing in a matter of hours can get really bad, because a bunny's system has to keep moving, like they have to keep ingesting food and their food ferments in their stomach. But if there isn't food continually going in and they're not, the whole process isn't processing, then toxins build up and it could be lethal for them. So I made a vet appointment at a 24-hour vet that was kind of far away, and I called out of work, and I had to because this was a timely thing. So I took him straight to the vet, and it was one of those vets where I couldn't go into the room. So it was very traumatic for me because he's been by my side since I got him, and I mean during COVID it was like 24 hours, like it was bad. Like I quit surfing, I wasn't working, and I just brought him everywhere. There were some weird things happening at my apartment, so I didn't trust him being there without me. So I brought him everywhere with me. We were like 24/7. He changed my life. I changed for him. Okay, but anyways, let's get back to the GI stasis in case you're going through this and you need the information right away. Okay, so first of all, take your bunny to the vet. If he didn't poop within so I slept for about 7 hours. If he didn't poop within that time and he's not liking food, not even his favorite treat, you need to take him straight to the vet right away because it is an emergency. Okay, so I took him to the vet. They took him from the parking lot into the hospital, and they told me to go home, but I just waited in the area for him. And a few hours later, they called me and told me that they could pick him up. So the doctor who did the exam called me, and she told me that she did 2 things. She gave him a shot, a painkiller shot, and like a UV hydrator, so it's like liquid, because their systems like are dehydrated, and it decreases the motility, like for them to process things, so they need to be hydrated. Antibiotic. He was an antibiotic. So antibiotic, the UV liquid, and a painkiller. She told me she gave him shots. So I just asked the questions like, why didn't you give, okay, so anyway, that from other videos I watched, that seems to be protocol. Like they do the liquid shot to hydrate them, and they do the painkillers, because what happens when their system stops is gas bubbles start to form, and it starts to push on their, like, the inside of their body, and it's extremely painful, and that's why they're lethargic. So that was another indication that something was wrong. He was extremely lethargic, like he just wanted to sit in one position the whole time. Okay, so she told me she did that. So I got him back from the hospital. She sent me home with the medication, and that was the painkiller. But then I asked her about, because I had watched videos prior, I said, well, what about the gas? Like, should I buy the gas relief drops that I seen on a video? And she's like, oh yeah, you can do that. Okay, so this is vitally important. In fact, you should have the gas relief drops on hand. Okay, and I'm not going to mention this doctor because I'm not into like defacing anyone, but she didn't even know that my bunny was a boy after she said she did a thorough exam and did all these things to him. Okay, so you don't know who she is. I'm not defacing her because, but so can you see where my concern was? So I was absolutely distressed about it, and I asked her about the gas relief drops, and she's like, oh yeah, you should do that. So I watched a bunch of videos, and every single video mentioned to have these gas relief drops on hand, and they're baby gas relief drops, and you can buy them in any store. They usually sell them in the infant section, and so I bought that right away, and I brought him home, and I just monitored him, and he still wasn't eating, and he still wasn't pooping. So I was extremely distressed and depressed, and I couldn't eat either because I just knew that he had to. She also sent me home with critical care, so that's extremely important as well. So critical care has to be fed by syringe to them, but the only flavor they had was an anise flavor at this location. So I bought it because they had it on hand, but he really didn't like it. So I tried to force feed him with the syringe. I should have videotaped it because it is a challenge, but like I watched it in another video, and what she said is to stay strong because they do need. But this is another thing. Okay, so another thing to be aware of is if there's an obstruction in their intestines, you're not going to want to try to force feed them because it compounds the problem. So what I should have done is, on the first vet care, I should have asked them to take a look, like I don't know if an x-ray or a radiograph or MRI, one of those can see if there is an obstruction, because if there's an obstruction and you're force feeding them food, it compounds a problem. But she had told me it was gas. She didn't do any of the x-ray things, but I should have asked, because I don't think they do it without, a request right away. I'm thinking, I'm not sure, but a lot of the other videos said that. Okay, so I wasn't sure if it was an obstruction, so I tried the critical care. It was a challenge. I got more on everywhere else except for in his mouth, but I still got, he hated the taste. But the gas relief drops were a really important one, so that one I just persisted, and I mean, he fought me all the way, and BB's like a feisty guy and very agile, so getting him to even take that was my main goal. Like, okay, if there's gas bubbles causing him pain, we need to, what the gas relief bubbles do is it makes them into smaller bubbles so that it can go through their system and hopefully come out like in a, like, they can't really fart, but yeah, they can bring those bubbles to their system, but not when they're in large size. So the gas relief drops makes the bubbles smaller. So I knew that was the most important thing. Like, I need to get the gas relief drops, and if he wasn't, and the pain medicine, because if he was in pain, that's what makes him not want to eat food. Okay, so gas relief drops, most important. The critical care, I was kind of skeptical. I knew he had to eat soon because, remember again, think about their systems they have to be processing food, otherwise there's a bacteria buildup in that area, and that's when it can become toxic and painful. And then some bunnies, they can't handle the pain, but BB's really strong, and I kept telling him, like, you're a strong boy, you can do this. Like, so it was like a couple of days that we experienced this. So after I brought him home from the hospital, it was that, like, my focus was the baby gas drops. I gave him the painkillers, and I tried the critical care. Something that I didn't see in any videos that I also did. So I give him a variety of dried herbs, and on my Instagram there's a list of all those dried herbs that I give him. It's like rosemary, parsley, oregano, basil. Oregano is antibacterial, basil. Okay, I'm not a doctor or a veterinarian, but this is just what I did, and I'm just sharing the information with you. Okay, it may not be the same for you. So when you go to your vet, which is your number one action that you should take, ask about the herbs. Maybe, so it's rosemary, parsley, oregano, basil, mint, and yeah, I think that's all, and a little bit of dill, because there's something like you can't overdose the dill, so a little bit of dill. So I gave him this mixture of dried herbs, right? And that was the only thing he would eat. Like, I would try to force him, hey, I was literally like, for 24 hours, I was like following him around. Like, my house was a mess, like my mind was a mess, like I couldn't eat, and I was just following him around, like with a ladle of water to try to keep him hydrated, which he was very good about that. Hydration is super important too. Like, they need to stay hydrated. So if you can't give them water in a cup or a ladle, then you need to syringe feed them. But you have to be aware of this too, and look up videos on how to, or ask the vet how to properly syringe administer water, because you can get water into their lungs as well, which is extremely bad. So ask your vet about proper syringe feeding of liquid if they're not taking the water in a bowl or a ladle. But luckily for me, it's like he knew what his body needed, because I would follow him around with the ladle. He would drink the water. He would always drink the water. But then the hay, he was refusing, but I just kept insisting. Like, I noticed he picked out certain pieces of hay, and it was like the smallest pieces all the time. And I was like, oh, come on, you need to get this in you, the fiber, right? So that's the most important thing, is like get the system moving with fiber. So I'd follow him around, and I'd give him small pieces of hay and just kind of put it in front of his face until he was so irritated that he just bit it. And like, I tell him, okay, come on, chew it, please, you have to have this. So I would, he got some hay in, but not that much. So the only thing he would eat is the mixture of dried herbs. So I had a little dish of that, and ask your vet too about how much they can have, but I had a little dish of that, and I was like, okay, he's at least getting something in his system, right? So I followed him around with that dish, and he was eating the mixture of herbs. So I was like, okay, good. And then when I looked up some of the herbs, it says it helps with like moving things along in your system. And I know oregano is like an antibacterial for the bacteria that could have been building up in the back of his system, right? Because that's where all the things ferment. And okay, so the herbs he did, the hay necessary, but he was kind of resisting. What happened was, so after that, he would poop. I would just watch him, like 24 hours, I'd watch him. Whenever he'd poop, it was like a celebration, but maybe within 24 hours, only like 20, when it's supposed to be like 150. Okay, so that's still a major concern, right? So the next day, after I take him to that previous vet, I just monitor him, try to feed him. He was still pooping like, a tenth or less of what he usually does. But I was like, okay, at least he's pooping, so it must not be an obstruction. It's got to be gas, because if there's an obstruction, they don't poop at all. And that is a major emergency. Like, if they're not pooping at all, you need to have a vet take a look, and maybe take a MRI or radiograph, or one of those that you can see their internal systems. Okay, so he was pooping, so I'm like, okay, and I seen like that there was duct tape that I tried to protect him from these sharp edges on his cage, and he had bitten some of it off. So I was like, oh no, that could be an obstruction, right? But yet he was pooping. It was very little bit, but he was pooping. So I'm like, okay, it's got to be gas, because there's still things that are coming up. Gas. And so I kept doing research, like as much as, like, it was constant. Like, I was just like, I feel bad for my other bunny, because I would feed him the other bunny, but basically my eyes were all on BB to get him back to health. Like, they're both my babies, but BB and I've been through a lot. Like, he's seen me almost die with staph. Okay, anyway, so back to the important information about the GI stasis. Okay, so the next day so I tried to call around for another vet. I'm like, I just want to make sure, because I'm not sure if it's gas or an obstruction. I read up a lot of things, watched all the videos on it, but so I tried to get another vet the next day. It was like all the places I knew had bunny doctors said that they weren't working that day, and I was just like, oh my god. And this is a timely thing, so I was kind of like freaked out, And I'm like, okay, just have faith, and I just kept praying. Like I prayed a lot. Like when I had to give him to that first place where the doctor didn't know he was a boy, like I was praying because, and even after when I came home with the medication, I was like praying and just like, I cover that place with the blood of Jesus. Please sanctify and purify that place and everyone's heart in that place, and that they love animals and they're good people in the world. And I was just praying, and then I was kind of freaking out when I had to wait for him, but I just prayed, and then he gave me a peace. Like I was still super worried, but I could handle it. Like I was, I still was, so just pray. You have to pray. Like pray. Just claim God's goodness. Claim that God, give me peace about this. Like help me, God, please. And another thing I had to do the following day when I couldn't get anyone, a rabbit vet, because they're kind of hard to find. You should research and find one before you get into this situation, so you know exactly where to go, like in case of an emergency or in case you need to make an appointment. But a lot of these places with rabbit vets were like, we can't see them right away, we need to make an appointment, and it's like a couple of days from now. And I was like, I can't wait that long. Like I need somewhere that will see him now, because this is a timely thing. Rabbit vet, look that up, know where the 24-hour care is in case of emergencies. So I was happy that that place was at least available, like 24 hours. So I had to call off for work the next day, and like I worked a double. So I felt terrible because, I know I was letting a lot of people down at work, and that's the worst feeling, but keeping BB alive, I called off for work again, and I just told them the truth. But anyway, back to the important information is that there was no vet available the next day. So again, I just thought about fiber, followed him around anywhere he went, and exercise. I did take him to the park to like exercise and get his system moving. I did give him some exercise. I chased him around the apartment constantly, trying to get him to either drink water or have hay. And that was my main concern, just the motility of his system, like getting his system moving and like examining his poops and just praising God whenever he did poop. Okay, so, but I was still concerned. So that night I went to sleep uneasy. So let's be uneasy. Okay, so the third day, I was able to, like this vet in the area said, I was notified that he was a rabbit vet, like he specialized in exotic animals. That's like all kind of different animals, like birds, and I called his office, and at first she was like, oh, I'm gonna reference you out to someone, and I'm like, please. I was like, please, like just can you please ask, like she's like, oh, let me ask him. So she was gonna refer me to someone else, but I'm so thankful that she didn't, and that she asked the doctor, and he actually she's like, he's booked today. And I was like, can you please just ask him if he has like, and she's like, wait, let me ask him. And she went and she asked him, and I'm thankful that she did that, because he gave me a time that was like 3 hours away, and I was thankful. I was like, oh my God, thank you. And this vet was like, okay, when I was outside, I was like kind of stressed out because of my experience from the previous place, right? Like not knowing he was a boy. And I mean, if you're examining his abdomen, he's like, there's balls, like he's not fixed because he's too small to have anesthesia. When I took him to a vet to get fixed, they said the anesthesia will kill him because he's very small for a dwarf. He was the runt of his litter. So I didn't get him fixed, so he has big balls, so I was concerned, like how can you examine his abdomen but not see that he's a boy? You kept referring him to a girl like after. But anyway, yeah, so I took him to this vet, and I was like so scared. I was just like, oh my God, please, God, please. I was like praying all the way there. I prayed before, I prayed like even like I almost left because I was just like, oh my God, like is this gonna be like, please God, like I need a vet. But I was just scared. I'll admit it, I was scared. So I was about to leave, but something just made me drive to the front door. Like I parked right in the front door after I was parked because at first there wasn't a stall available, so I parked kind of far away, and then my car just went to the front door. So I was like, okay. And then the doctor called me from inside, and he sounded so nice, and I was like, thank you God. Like he sounded so nice, and he's like, come on in, like wear a mask and you can come in the room. And I was just like relieved, because I was like, thank you. And this doctor was amazing. Like I've been to a lot of vets, and I didn't have a vet that I fully trusted and wanted to bring him back. Not to say they weren't good vets, I'm sure they are good veterinarians, but this guy was just amazing. I mean, everything about what he did was amazing, and he must be like an animal whisperer, because BB in his arms totally complied with everything. I mean, he trimmed his nails, he like showed me how to syringe feed, and he did not give him like it was amazing. Like I was amazed, and I'm thankful. I'm just extremely thankful. Dr. Alco, thank you. You were like hope in a moment of despair, and I was in despair at that time. I thank you for being a bright light of hope. I thank you. And he's kind of like an everyday superhero, like helping all these animals and saving them, and his whole staff and team, you know, being able to let me make an appointment. I'm thankful. Thank you, Dr. Alco. If you ever come across this video, like, I want you to know I'm extremely thankful for who you are and what you did that day, because that was hope. He told me that pineapple juice was important in the mobility of his system, and his nurse showed me a massage. So I got a lot of valuable information at that place. So when I left that place, I was feeling really good and happy and hopeful, and I just prayed that God bless that place and everyone who worked there, and bless the doctor abundantly for what he did. And you know, all the medical doctors out there too, saving human lives. Like, you guys are really seriously everyday heroes, and nurses, because the nurses do a lot. I was in the hospital in that situation, and you guys are everyday heroes, like saving lives and doing great things in this world. You're live angels here on earth, and thank you. I just want to thank you for everything that you do. Like, thank you. Thanks. Like, I brought him home, and I was feeling more confident. I got some more pain medication because I had knocked over the container when I was trying to administer it to him, because he always fought me. So when I came home, he still fought me, you know, on like everything I tried to do with the syringe. I think he knew the doctor wasn't going to take it, any of his, like, you know, but with me, he knows he can get away with anything, so he just wasn't. But so my first thing was, okay, we got to get those gas bubbles, like, because I could feel his abdomen getting like harder, you know, so it was I was concerned. So I was like, okay, let's try the gas bubbles. At the first indication that of them not eating and not pooping, you should give that to them right away. Like, once, I think it's 0.3 milliliters, but you know, ask the vet, because other videos said 0.3 milliliters every hour for 3 hours. So 0.3 milliliters, wait an hour, 0.3 milliliters, wait an hour, and then 0.3 again on the initial. And then every 8 hours, another website said 3 hours, you can give them 0.3 milliliters again. But again, look it up, read, you know, but that's what I gave him, 0.3 twice, and then every 8 hours I would give it to him. And that was the main thing. I was thinking, like, okay, he needs this. But I did notice there's xanthan gum in the relief drops, so then that kind of affects the system too, right? So it's super important that you get the hay in there for fiber, because xanthan gum is a binder, it's an artificial binder, and yeah, so but the gas is what causes the pain, and for them not wanting to eat, so that had to be addressed first. So I forced the gas drops, and I got some in his mouth with a syringe with a lot of, so the gas drops in that order. Again, look up, there's a lot of videos, and look up their websites, look that up. And okay, so the gas drops are extremely important. So I gave that to him, and then after that he was able to, I just gave him a lot of water, and he wanted to drink water, so that was extremely important. Like, I just gave him a lot of water. It's like he knew what his body needed, and he drank water. He would eat like a piece of hay here and there, but anytime he ate one piece, I was like stoked, because I was like, okay, fiber. Like, but he would pick like the thinnest, smallest pieces, and he'd be like, it's like he was, yeah, I don't know why, but okay, but hey, if you can get that in their system, that's it, the most important thing too. And he would eat the herbs, so I was like, okay, at least something's in his system, and it'll cause the movement, so he would have the herbs. So I just kept giving a mixture of herbs. Be careful with this. Again, I'm not a doctor. This is just what I did. So I gave him the mixture of herbs, and not all herbs are bunny safe, so please research that as well. But I give him the mixture of herbs, and he would eat the herbs. So I was like, oh my god, okay, great, like he's in something, you know. I tried to force feed again the critical care. I mixed it with a little bit of pineapple juice, the doctor's recommendation, and water to make it like not super thick but kind of more on the liquidy side in the syringe. But he fought me, like fought me. But in a lot of videos I've seen, if it's not an obstruction and it's gas, that a lot of people feed the critical care, like that's super important. But so yeah, critical care is important. Again, do your research, look it up. I tried that, he wouldn't. I tried the spoon after, from a spoon, he didn't, so I'd have to persist with the syringe. But he was having the herbs, and like, so that was really good. He was ingesting the herbs with the water, a lot of water. He was just drinking a lot of water, so I was thankful. And pieces of hay, after like literally lying next to him and just feeding him hay by hand, and him not wanting it, but just kind of irritating him, not like, you know what I mean, just putting it by his face. Not, you don't want to like, yeah, just put it by his face, like, come on, you have to eat it, and just talk to him like, this is gonna make you feel better, you know, like, you're strong, come on, you have to do this is gonna help your tummy. And he would eat like pieces of it, so that was good. That was the fiber that he needed. Today, fast forward to today, okay, he is on his way to recovery. He was eating more hay. It wasn't that much, but it was a lot more than it was the other day. He woke up, he actually wanted his treat, and that was my indicator, like, okay, he's on his way to healing. Like, it's not gonna go in the other direction, right? And I prayed a lot, let me tell you, a lot. Like, but I'll get into the spiritual aspect of this story. I think I'll make it in a separate video, because this is a vital information that someone might need if they're going through this. Okay, so today, I mean, they need the spiritual side of it too, because I'm absolutely sure that God had his hand on this. But just in case, you, like, maybe when you're waiting for the vet, if it's a vet that doesn't let you in the room, then you can watch the other spiritual video. But it's just as important, because I know God had his hand on this. Like, I absolutely know it, and I'll tell you why in the next video. Okay, but so the hay, he was having more hay. He actually wanted a treat. He only ate half of it, but he still wanted the treat. He had a couple pieces of lettuce, and he drank water. He drank water, hay, lettuce. He had a couple pieces of parsley. I had some fresh parsley on hand. And yeah, he just showed improvement today, and he pooped a lot more, like twice as much as he did the day before. So they're still really small and irregular in size, so I know we're not like 100% through this yet, but I read that sometimes it takes, some people it takes hours to recover, their bunnies recover. Some people it takes days, and some people, one article said it took their bunny like 2 weeks until their poop was back to normal. But he did show a lot of improvement today, so I was happy. He's such a strong bunny. God is good, and if you're going through this could be helpful to you. Okay, but again, do your own research, read as much information as you can, talk to your veterinarian. See the second vet, Dr. Arco, had a lot of experience, like 40 years of experience. So I totally trusted him. He proved himself trustworthy. He's like bright light, miracle worker, hope giver, and I'm thankful of him and his establishment. It's amazing. He's amazing, and it was a great experience there. Okay. Everyone else, I'm sure they're good too, and they're just trying their best as well. And yeah, so if this information is helpful, then that's why I made this video. And the spiritual part, I'm gonna make separate in another video. But again, please watch it while you're waiting for your bunny, because it's just as important. I love you, the bunnies love you, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and God love you.